So, last year I made a video talking about one of Shonen Jump's latest additions, Mamayuyu. Of the batch that was released at the time, I thought it had the most potential. With dynamic and creative paneling that works well to build the atmosphere and emotions of its scenes, and an introspective story with a lot of potential for magical action, it seemed like it could really go places. But while Kagurabachi has been thundering along, Mamayuyu has been giving its readers anxiety. This is one of the most about to be cancelled manga I've ever read. But it isn't the most about to be cancelled manga ever. If you've ever read a manga that's made you think this is 3 chapters from cancellation for about 10 chapters before it did get cancelled, you know what I'm talking about. A tweet I saw describing it as Schrodinger's manga, where it's in a constant state of about to end and ramping up to the next stage of the story, seemed apt. In fact, by the time you watch this video, it might very well be cancelled. Or you could be watching this after having just read chapter 200 in the future. So in the interest in seeing what's going on, this video will be analyzing how the story's been chugging along to see what it said and why it's got so many readers tilted. So, let's get to the question. What's the deal with Mamayuyu? Also, the editing on this is going to be lighter than normal. I've already gone over the introductory arc in my last video, but I should still go over some of the beats here now. Mamayuyu kicks off by introducing us to what you would call a post-adventure world. Essentially, a world that, for all intents and purposes, has already gone through a massive world-shaking adventure and is in what other manga would call the epilogue. Think Frieren, or, well, technically, Boruto. In a world where demons and humans were once at war, the last hero, Halo, was able to finally bring about peace at the cost of his life. Now the current hero, Corleo, is being raised by the demon lord that was his predecessor's enemy, Mamama. But living in the shadows of great heroes who fought demon armies and brought about peace and prosperity leaves the young hero conflicted. It takes quite a bit to feel like a washed up failure without even doing anything. Mamama doesn't help, always trying to discourage him from living anything but a normal life, herself motivated by the previous hero's desire that his successor would live peacefully. And then Evan Allgreen shows up, a hero from another dimension still at war with its demon lord. And Corleo is struck with amazement, thinking Evan is what a hero should be. Evan himself is shocked at how humans and demons could come to live together peacefully, as well as the absence of sigil sorcery, magic available to the bearers of the marks of hero and villain. And then we get to meet Evan's demon lord, End, an absolutely gargantuan mishmash of eyes, arms and faces screaming Evan's name. Evan remarks that it's small and weak now before using his power and the magic of paneling to squeeze it down. He then reveals that he plans to kill Corleo and take his place now that his world has become uninhabitable. As it turns out, Evan himself doesn't really know what it means to be a hero. He's from a cruel world and has had to turn cruel to survive. That's why he transported himself to this one. And it's only on the brink of death that Corleo realizes what a hero is to him. Someone who protects others. God, that's generic. But it's generic because it's true. Plus, being generic means it can rub up against other ideas rather effectively. Corleo saves Evan from End, losing half of his body in the process as he realized that he always really did want to be a hero. Once End is defeated, Evan revives Corleo in exchange for his life, calling him a true hero. And he gives him a portion of his power. But the story doesn't end in chapter 1. Evan and End's trip opened the floodgates, and now numerous heroes and demon lords are entering Corleo's world and throwing things out of balance. Some thing attacks Corleo and Mamama, tearing her right arm off before they are saved by General Pannelo, a member of the demon hero central army, here to ask for Corleo's help. They already have another hero with them in custody. So Corleo sets off on this adventure with a desire to grow stronger and protect the world from darkness as it moves into a new era. The introductory arc brings several themes to light for the story. The meaning of being a hero, the self-sacrifice that comes with the role, the way the world you live in can shape your view of what it means to be a hero, while asking the question, does such a difference really matter? I think that last one is the most interesting aspect, as the heroes and demon lords we'll meet have all been shaped differently by the worlds they come from. Mamama isn't coming with us, but she lost her arm with the demon sigil and has no powers, so it really wouldn't be feasible for her to do so. But we will begin meeting the rest of the cast.
Oh no, that is what they all say when they see me pouring some
En route to meeting the new hero, Corleo trains a bit and figures out how to work his new powers, specifically the power to levitate, which he has in addition to healing abilities. He prepares for whatever may come when he meets the new hero the army has, be they friend or foe. He's not prepared for her to be a girl. This is Elysia, the first hero Corleo has to contend with. She's kind of a scaredy cat. She was on the run with her mother back in her world, but now that her mom is dead and she's in another world, she doesn't know what to live for or do. Both of them wallow in their perceived weakness before they get attacked by another thing. The manga calls them eyeball monsters. Let's stick with that. I guess you could say this is where the origin of some of the fears fans have about the manga's stability truly starts, as a sort of maybe romance appears to be forming between Elysia and Corleo, and the dialogue is very awkward teenagers who've never really interacted with the opposite sex. It's understandable, but well, you'll see. Beyond that, Corleo's bravery despite his obvious fear inspires Elysia to keep going and, try. And together, making use of her super strength ability and his flight, they defeat the monster. And as Corleo passes out, Elysia asks if he'll be what she lives for, which feels so awkward when you actually verbalize it. Shortly thereafter, they meet Escaba, a demon lord from another world, and it becomes quite clear Corleo has a unique outlook compared to most heroes. He's not scared or hateful of demon lords. I mean, his mom is one. Escaba is from a world where nearly all demons have been killed by humans, so he's really hoping to make a good impression and find a way to go back to his friends. He also reveals that his sigil sorcery is giving shadows mass and controlling them. And so a team is formed as the two heroes and one demon lord start to trust each other. Then Escaba attacks Elysia. Oops. And so Corleo finds himself in his first fight with the demon lord. The fight's pretty good. Corleo displays impressive tactical ability for someone who's never been in a real battle and the resilience to stand up to the pain of a beating. As it ramps up though, a third party arrives. This is Minerva, the idol demon lord. She's fun. With a sigil sorcery that messes with the focus of others, Minerva engages Escaba in a fight. Despite her lack of a direct attack ability, the fight gets more intense as the two demons start smashing each other through the military building they're in. She puts up quite an impressive show, but she never actually planned to be the one to defeat him. That's why she told Corleo to grab Elysia, who's relatively fine, so she can punch him in the face with super strength. Before the fight can ramp up even more though, Escaba's boss shows up to tell him to calm down. Grisha, as he identifies himself, isn't really interested in fighting and corners Corleo, revealing that he's transplanted part of End onto his head. But it's too weak at the moment, so he plans to feed it sigils, and Corleo's will make a special meal when it's ready. Corleo, realizing he's out of power and in a bad position, threatens to cut his arm off, sigil and all, if Grisha doesn't return everyone and leaves. Grisha wants the sigil at its most powerful, so he does. But not before revealing that there are currently more than 10 heroes and demon lords in the world. He wants them to fight and make their sigil stronger to provide him with even more powerful meals for his end fragment. So Corleo finds himself gaining new resolve to put an end to the fighting between heroes and demon lords. This section brings the true scope of the conflict into focus and forces our weak main characters to strengthen their resolve to fight. Sigils require you have a clear-cut goal to draw out their abilities, and so strengthening their resolve does in fact make them stronger. It also introduces two new villains, Grisha, the main one who seems rather affable, and Evan, who were probably meant to dislike more because no one likes betrayal. I don't, because I can tell there's something more going on, and a lot of what he claimed he did in that betrayal was a lie. He didn't even kill anyone. We also meet Minerva. Once again, she's cool. However, despite her seeming to be more interested in getting him and Elysia together, she does bring in a second instance of what feels like a romance push in the manga that's only building to the point of questioning the manga's focus.
We think it's empty again.
This arc starts out trying to balance out all the previous seriousness with a more light-hearted tone. Before everything gets set on fire. Your mileage may vary. It starts out with Pannelo being cold as hell, then cuts to Minerva insisting on sleeping in the same bed as Corleo, which just fuels the awkward teen comedy, which you could find funny or awkward. Corleo spars with Minerva, I'm pretty sure they make a boob joke, and then he asks what an idol is. So Minerva introduces him to the concept from her world. Idols dance, they sing, they beat the shit out of each other in mixed martial arts bouts. You know, the usual. Minerva wants to go back to her world where she has fans who adore her because it was the only place she could feel loved. She's also clearly amused by the heroes saying they want to be each other's reasons for living. If this is the beginning of a romance, I give it an automatic above average score for the simple fact that both the guy and the girl are on the same page regarding what they want. Shonen manga have this habit of making one partner be the only one who cares most of the time. Anyway, now that we've done quite a bit of character building, the plot requires attention. We learn there's another hero who has a habit of not paying for food, which he doesn't have to in his world. Also, Mamama briefly returns to give us the funniest joke in the manga. Ralfred is dumb, but presents in a classic hero saves the princess kind of way, and he mistakes Elysia for one. They explain what's going on, but he has his own view on the hero-demon conflict. He will kill any demon lord he sees. He's also very impatient and wants to work alone. Why is he like this? Well, the princess he served tried to form peace with the demons, and she lost her head. So he picks a fight with Minerva and sets a church on fire with his flame sorcery. Minerva then starts shouting her backstory at him, and he shouts back that he doesn't want to hear it. Turns out, humans are extinct in her world, and she was abused by her mom until she gained her sigil. Then she was sold. Then she became a delinquent. But while she kept trying to find a place where she could be comfortable, she found the idol ring. But she also became insecure at the threat of losing her fans and their love. And then we snap back to reality and she's on the ground bleeding. No wonder Gege gave this manga a shout out. Then Corleo runs in and Ralfred is shocked he actually came in, because doing so requires a healing sigil, but he's already seen Corleo fly, and 2 sigil abilities is not usually a thing. Then Corleo cuts Ralfred's sword from a distance to the cutting attack. No wonder Gege gave this a shout out. As the fight rages, we get Ralfred's backstory as a slave who befriended and pledged himself to a princess, the daughter of a demon-human political marriage, who freed him to keep him from being executed. And then her demon brother was born, and he became the demon lord that cut her head off. Sigils require you have a clear-cut goal to fight, and as the fight rages, Ralfred becomes more clouded and he begins losing the will and conviction to kill Minerva, realizing he's distorting the memory of his beloved princess. He also informs us that the earlier you get your sigil, the stronger you are, and if you get one while you're still in your mother's womb, it's an extremely powerful one called the Mother Sigil. That's probably what Evan and End had. Corleo appeared when he was 2 months old, but most of the other characters got theirs as children. Also, Minerva and Elysia dress up as maids and do a concert to pay for the Dine and Dashing. Ralfred's a great addition, in theory, but in execution, it's not quite there. The manga doesn't do a very good job of drawing a connecting line from his backstory to his loss against Corleo, and by the conclusion when he's decided to serve Corleo the same way he served the princess, it's less than ideal. And despite the interesting aspects of Minerva's relationship with the concept of love, that hasn't really been explored. Also, Escaba is Evan's demon lord.
I hand over this victory to...
This is when people began wondering how long this manga was for the world. The main villain dropping his henchmen directly on the heroes will do that to you. End's power, Corpse Conclave, allows the user to control things related to death, and Grisha is using the promise of bringing the dead back to get people to work for him. Personally, I would have had at least one hero work for him. The arc mostly focuses on Corleo and Elysia facing Elysia's ice-powered demon lord, Kuptula, the demon lord who ended the age of humans. In Elysia's world, it's been raining for 50 years, which makes Kuptula extremely powerful, and humans have been living in hiding. When she became a hero, she and her mom were kicked out of their village and had to live on the run. But after 10 years, her mom died, telling her to find something to live for. And now she has. Along with that, Corleo has a newfound ability. He can manipulate flames. Would it be too much if I made a third reference to Jujutsu Kaisen? The two make a pretty effective tag team as they battle the demon lord and get the upper hand. When asked why she's working for someone who's clearly using her, Kuptula references having a dead loved one, specifically a child, but Elysia has lost someone too. The fight centers on living after the loss of a loved one and moving forward in life. But there are 3 more demon lords to face off with, and Grisha arrives to take the defeated Kuptula's sigil and unleash a horde of monsters. So they try bargaining. He won't accept Corleo's still maturing sigil, so Minerva offers hers. Grisha takes her to motivate Corleo, and because he plans on using her to bring Evan back. This all happens in chapter 17, which is when things kinda start getting iffy. Before leaving, Minerva kisses Corleo goodbye, to the shock of everyone, even the villain. She uses the opportunity to also tell him to grab one of Grisha's pawns. This is Monica, a demon lord child being manipulated by Grisha, who quickly gets a crush on Corleo and gets jealous of Elysia. Also, Corleo is just using Sukuna's curse technique at this point. These chapters kind of had readers tilted because they got the vibe of the author is trying to appeal to more readers with a pseudo harem shtick. This is where my previous mentions of romance being included come back to being relevant, as when they all gather out together and build up to this point, it doesn't paint a very confident picture. But really, this harem question is only relevant for like 3 chapters, so it's either it was misinterpreted or it wasn't working the way the mangaka wanted and he pulled back. The characters also figure that Grisha wants to use Minerva as a vessel to bring back Evan, and luckily hear about Sadiko, Monica's paired hero, who they believe will give them a chance at victory with her power over ghosts and spirits. Honestly, this arc had its ups and downs. It hasn't been the best executed and really kind of feels like it's rushing to a conclusion. This also really sets in the anxiety.
Bittersweet melody when I dance on your fly.
The current arc, which may be the end, begins with a trip to an amusement park. Also, Ralph has been benched. Not a promising start. But it does get you to relax because it's not rushing. It takes its time to get the readers invested in the conflict and the characters, as Monica and Elysia get sucked into the amusement park, and we get into the idea that our main characters never really got to have childhoods. But we finally meet Sadiko. Well, first we learn about her world. Humans have dominated demons and have essentially been putting every new demon lord to death when they reach the age of 18. But Corleo isn't deterred and fights to reach the pretty kooky hero. Sadiko is the kind of hero who goes for the easiest solution without really considering others. A real failure of a hero. But she's really here to help train Corleo and everyone. Well, really Corleo. After a test where Corleo determines that he'd rather get stronger and save his friends than just give up so Grisha doesn't get his sigil, she summons the spirits of 2 heroes to fight and train him. She tries to summon Halo Halo, but he doesn't show up. And then a strange thing happens. The past heroes of Corleo's world use sigil sorcery, even though their world doesn't have it. While Corleo trains with them, Mamama returns to the story to give the girls some words of encouragement and also give us the second best joke in the series. Corleo manages to power up right in time to go to Grisha's base and take him on. Ralfred shows up to fight Escaba. Pannelo fights some guy the story has given us no information about except telling us yeah, he's totally really strong. And Sadiko wants to watch to see what kind of hero she failed to become. But that's all pretty immediately cast aside so we can focus on Corleo rescuing Minerva and fighting Grisha. He now has Captula's ice, the compression power, and even a warping ability. Turns out Evan's power was copy. At this point, Grisha gets excited because Corleo's finally become strong enough. And then we finally learn what Grisha's motivation for all of this is. To use an army of revived heroes and demons to conquer the multiverse. Yeah, it's quite bland. And to match his uninteresting goal, he just gets absolutely destroyed by Corleo. He tries to escape from the fight he's losing, but Minerva and Monica show up to unbalance him, giving Corleo enough time to hit him with a copy of Elysia's power, blowing a hole straight through him. Getting desperate, Grisha teleports to Mamama while she's paying respect to Halo Halo in an attempt to hold her hostage. It doesn't work out for him and Corleo knocks End right off his empty head. End then begins crying because it really does want to see Evan again. Then it goes wild and basically spreads across the entire country. And then Halo Halo shows up, and we finally get some elaboration on some of the questions we've been gaining. The reason no one in Corleo's world has any memory of sigil sorcery is because Halo Halo used his sigil, a mother sigil that allows him to erase things, to erase it from the world. He could have erased people's hatred, but he had faith in them to overcome that themselves. But now, with all of this chaos, a failsafe is set off to return it. The space they are currently talking in is actually Corleo's sigil sorcery, one that allows him to create spaces within spirits and psyches that even lets him dilate time. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's essentially the barrier of a domain expansion. Yes, I will continue referencing Jujutsu Kaisen. All the sigil sorcery he's been using so far have just been Evan's ability to copy sorcery. After really thinking about what he wants to do, Corleo decides he wants to figure out what the deal is with End and why they were crying. He spent so much time advocating for trying to form an understanding between demon lords and heroes, it only makes sense that he tried the same. Corleo also names his sigil sorcery Loyal Lionheart, after the same reasoning that went into naming him. Then he uses it to create a space where he can communicate with End. And so we get her backstory. When Evan was born with the mother's sigil, the demons of his world panicked, so they killed 3,800 demon lords until one with the mother's sigil was born. And then they began experiments to make her into a strong weapon. Needless to say, life was hell. She ran away once and ran into Evan, and that's when she became obsessed with the one person who showed her any kindness. And then 10 years later, someone showed up and told her Evan was dead, telling her that through her power and love, she could bring him back. Who is this guy? We may never know. But that did get her to use her powers as she tried to grasp her feelings, and also went on a rampage. That's when Corleo brings up one last point. He died in the introductory arc, and so he must have been brought back with Corpse Conclave. Evan used a copy of it to bring him back to life. And it's unlikely he'll remain after N dies. He is being kept alive by a copy of her ability, done by someone who she brought to life with that ability. And so, as the demon lord begins crying, regretting that she was ever born, our hero reaches for her.
How does it feel to breathe when you're dead?
This story probably ends next week, but there's quite a bit to analyze, from the different ways the human-demon conflict has molded societies and the heroes and demon lords that come from them, and the themes of what it means to be a hero, what it means to love and be loved, and finding the will to love. Ultimately, I think this manga's biggest problem was entertaining the audience. Hayashi Yoshihiko crafted all the ingredients, but I don't think he was able to put them together quite well. There are questions to ask as we go forward, but the main plot seems to be wrapping up. And so the other characters have fallen to the wayside. Unfortunate. I think there was a really interesting story as to why Escaba killed his sister in there, but at least Elysia got a somewhat complete arc. Personally, I would have focused more on Escaba and his story over Captula. There seem to be ideas of the questions of what free will heroes and demon lords even have, and I bet he just really wanted to bring his sister back. But on the flip side, Elysia is just much more interesting than Ralfred. I really did think this manga had a lot of potential. But potential will only carry you so far if you don't execute on it. What did you think of Mamayuyu? Is it cancelled yet, or are you watching this video laughing your ass off because you just finished reading chapter 100? Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thank you, and good day.